Hey, shalom YouTube, Sister Kate here, obviously back at the cottage on Shofar Mountain. This is the first work day we've had, so I've got a project. I've actually had several. I've washed some clothes. All our water was frozen when we showed up, so as it's thawing, it's gotten warmer outside. I've been catching water. I've been washing dishes and stuff. And another project I have for myself today involves this recipe for white sandwich bread, which I got out of the latest Mother Earth news. There is a article in there, and you use a starter for your bread. And I made that starter while I was still in Kansas, and I made some for the Saints too. And then I brought it down, and I need to add more ingredients to it. So I've got those ingredients here. I had to add salt, and I would use something other than this salt, but this is what I have right now. I would much rather use like Himalayan salt, but it has to be a little bit more. And then this is yeast, and then I have flour, and the flour's in a jar because I found out those pantry moths go right through, as I've mentioned in another video, the cardboard containers and paper containers and even Ziploc bags that I was keeping it in. So now I'm keeping all my stuff down here in jars. And then I have a King Arthur flour, like, I don't know what you call it. It's for rolling out pie crusts and stuff. It's not a cloth. It's kind of made of plastic. But I brought that with me too, so if I have to work flour down here, I have a surface, safe surface that I can use to work it. And I needed the bread on that. I had to add hot water and I believe honey to it. And then if you look over my shoulder, let me see if I can, yep, right there is the rising bowl, the bowl that I've greased and then put the dough in. And it's covered with a cloth that's moist, and it's sitting in front of the fire, the wood stove, to allow it to rise double. And then I have cake pans already greased that I will divide that divide the dough up into, and then let it rise again, and then bake it. And I'm going to bake it on the wood stove. I looked at a YouTube video to figure out how to do that, and I believe what I'm going to do is underneath of these I will put the canning rings to keep them lifted up so they don't get too hot, maybe even a double layer of them, and then maybe cover them with a tin foil. I would use a big pot, but I don't know if I have a pot big enough to cover both of these these bread pans. So I will cover them, and then hopefully it will bake. The one lady had a really nice big rounded pot with a lid that she used. I have a Dutch oven here on the mountain, but it's in the kitchen, and I don't know if I'm going to get up there in time to get it today. So I'm going to try cooking it right on top, right up there. I also have bricks there, so I may use them somehow. I may put the bread pans on the bricks or something. Anyway, that's what I'm up to today. I hope it's been instructional for you, and I look forward to your comments, and bless you. Shalom. So it's risen already, and I'm starting to turn it, and this is the way my mom kneaded dough. She just kind of rolled it and tucked it, and rolled it and tucked it, just like that. And you want the dough to be satiny and springy. As you see, it moves. If I put my finger in it, that hole starts to fill back in. That's a good sign. And that starter, it just went right in with the new dough and the hot water. It just dissolved it right into it. So I'm kind of happy about that. I've never used that kind of thing before. And you see I've got my surface with flour on it. If the dough is not mixed well enough, it will pick up more flour. If it's got enough flour, then it doesn't, and it keeps it from sticking. So turn it several times, and then it says cut it in half. They have this fancy knife. I use my hands. Okay, and then it says pat each half into an oval, 8 by 10 inches. I'm kind of forming it there. I don't think they're 8 by 10. I think we're going to have to make that a little bit bigger to get it 8 by 10. Pat. Okay. Now there's a really nice ruler right on the edge of this cloth. So this is about 6 inches. Spread it out a little bit more. Now it's more like 8. And then it says, then roll into a nice fat loaf. Now I've got another recipe that's in the old Betty Crocker cookbook, and it talks about rolling the loaf too, so I know what they mean. They're talking about like this. So you get this nice little loaf like that, and then that will go in a bread pan. And these ones seem kind of big for this. See how it doesn't really fill the space? Kind of makes me wonder. But anyway, that's that part of it, and then I'll let them rise for 2 more hours. Alright, so the bread had been cooking on top of the stove with that pot turned over on top of the bread pans, and when I checked it an hour later, the tops were still soft. So I have tried to put a lid on the breads instead of an entire pan, hopefully to get the heat to be a little bit closer to the tops of the loaves, and then put kind of a tinfoil tent over top, and we'll see if that helps them bake any better. But I'm pretty sure the heat down here in the oven is hot enough, because if we put that pot on the oven, it's boiling, and that's at least 210 degrees. So I think we're hot enough. I just think we have to kind of get it to be close to the loaves to get it cooked. Alright, I'll check back with you later. Here's the first finished loaf. The other one is still over there, gonna have another maybe 5 minutes. Without a thermometer, I really didn't know how to tell if it was done, but when I tapped it, it sounded done to me, and I also poked it with a knife. I didn't have any toothpicks, and it came out clean. And then I checked the bottom, and it was pretty dark, so I'm fairly certain this one is done, and I took it off the heat, and then I'll take the other one off. So I'm going to consider this experiment a success, cooking bread on top of the wood stove. I found that putting the lid on the bread, a pot lid on the bread, and then making sort of a tent out of the tin foil, did better than putting a pot, just a plain pot over top of the bread. I think it brought the heat down lower to the top of the bread, and the tent allowed it to spread out more evenly. So I think it's a success. It smells really good. Pastor and I will be eating this later this week. So there it is. Hoping it helped you guys. Shalom.